Never meant to be. My Little Pony Fanfic by Priceless 911. Chapter 9 Zeil opened his eyes only to find himself standing in the middle of the most horrifying sight he had ever seen. He looked around and found himself standing on a hill in the middle of what was once a terrible and bloody battlefield. As far as the eye could see was a stretch of pony, griffin, and zebra corpses that covered the landscape, making it almost impossible to see the trampled and dead grass below them. And if the sight wasn't bad enough, the reddish glow stretched across everything. From an overhead eclipse made even the remaining grass look as if blood had rained down from the heavens above. Seeing the dead soldiers, weapons, and blood made Zeil cover his mouth and close his eyes as he tried to remove this vision of horror from his mind. But as he tried to bear the sight, a voice came from behind him. Terrible, isn't it? So many lost, all because of what the heart desires most in this world. But then again, how are you supposed to react when your heart demands something from you? Recognizing the voice, Zeil turned and looked at the sitting zebra. Rafi? Where are we? What is this place? The wise chief stood up and trotted past Zeil. Don't you recognize it? It's the same field we met in before. This is Equestria. Zeil looked around at the site. No, that's impossible. Equestria hasn't had a war in over a millennium. How could this be? Wait, he looked at the armor of a fallen zebra on the ground, then back at Chief Rafi's armor. These were your soldiers, weren't they? Chief Rafi nodded. Do you recall the stallion I mentioned before? Well, 1,000 years ago I came to this place in hopes of stopping a war, but found myself fighting in it instead. Not because I wanted to, but because when I met that stallion, I knew that he wasn't fighting for orders or even for glory. He was fighting for love. Zeil gave Rafi a curious look. Love? All of this for love? Rafi smiled. He was given a choice: his love or the lives of those around him. His first answer led to the horror you see before you, while his second led to his endless regret. But what he doesn't know is that with his second choice, even though it will take a long time, he will find his love and his happiness. Zeil stepped closer to Chief Rafi and gave him a skeptical look. So, you're saying that I'll have to make the same kind of choice, won't I? Rafi nodded, expressionless. You will. Zeil continued, what choice will I have to make? Chief Rafi looked away. You will have to choose whether they see you as what you are or who you are. But I will warn you. They are coming. And if you don't make this choice soon, then you and Zekora will never be. Zeil had to ask, who is coming? And what do you mean what or who I am? Chief Rafi ignored the questions and turned to Zeil, looking him in the eye. Zeil. It's time to choose. Will you fight a war for your love? Or give it up without a fight? Temporary torment or endless regret? This is your choice, your path, and in this case, your future. Zeil thought to himself as he tried to understand what he was supposed to choose. Nevertheless, he looked back at Chief Rafi and replied with a serious expression, I love Zekara. And I'll do whatever it takes for us to be together. Chief Rafi smiled, placed his hoof on Zeil's shoulder, and said, I am proud to know you as one of my brothers. And I know that despite your species' reputation, you will make the right choice and show them what you are capable of. And all the while earn their acceptance. Even if, never mind, it is not my journey to make, but yours. I will leave you now. Farewell, Brother Zein. With that, Chief Rafi looked at the bright red eclipse above as it grew brighter and brighter until Zeil had to cover his eyes to shield them from the light. When he moved his hoof to see what was making the eclipse so bright, Zeil found himself looking at the sunlight shining through the hole in the ceiling of the old tower where he had been sleeping. Blocking the light from entering his freshly woken eyes, Zeil sat up and mumbled to himself, Rafi, what were you talking about? I've never seen him this serious before. And who's coming? Spread out. When Zeil heard that faint voice echoing through the doorway, he quickly jumped out of bed, made his way downstairs, and entered the second floor of the castle's main lobby. As soon as he entered the lobby, he kept his head down and eased to the indoor balcony that overlooked the center of the room. He took cover behind the marble railing and looked down onto the first floor to see shining armor and a number of royal guards creeping across the bottom floor like a pack of hunting wolves. As Zeil listened closely, he heard shining armor give his orders. All right. You know the drill. You two take the east wing, you two the west. You four start searching upstairs. And the rest of you will search down here. If you see any pony, zebra, or changeling, arrest them on sight. But if they put up a fight, do what you have to make sure they don't escape. Understood? The guards stood at attention and replied, Yes, Your Majesty. The guards started separating into their groups, and four of them began trotting up the main lobby stairs. Knowing they were headed his way, Zeil quickly and quietly backed up before turning and rushing to the bedchambers as fast and stealthily as he could. After returning to the room, Zeil closed and locked the door and reached for his saddlebag. Great! Shining armor came to me. I wonder how they knew I was here. No matter, I've got to get to Zekara and fast. As Zeil put on his saddlebag, he went to the balcony and whispered to himself, All right, let's do this. He changed from his zebra form into his changeling form and opened his wing in preparation to fly, but as he felt the wind blow against his only wing, Zeil quickly looked where his other wing used to sit inside. That's right. I can't fly anymore. Crap, how am I? Sudden banging sounded against the door as the royal guards on the other side yelled, "Who's in there?" Open this door now. By order of Princess Celestia, open this door. As the pounding continued, Zeil quickly looked around to find a way out. With a hopeless sigh, he grabbed the bed linen and began tying the corners of the sheets together, along with the comforter, the pillowcases, and any other fabric he could find. With his newfound rope made, Zeil tied it to the balcony rail, tossed it over, and started climbing down. With each carefully gripped knot, Zeil felt the situation getting worse until his thoughts were confirmed. When he reached the bottom of his sheet rope, he looked down and realized he still had almost 15 feet to go until he reached a tree below. He mumbled, "All right, looks like I'm jumping. 1, 2, 3. He released the sheet rope, fell 15 feet, and landed into the tree, using the branches and leaves as a painful, stiff cushion. After landing, Zeil looked around to see if the coast was clear, changed into one of the royal guards he had seen in the lobby, and climbed down to the ground. Now that Zeil was on the ground, he looked up to see if anyone watched from above. That was harder than expected. Oh well, now to get to Zico. Hey! Feeling a cold chill, Zeil turned to the voice and saw shining armor approach him. Knowing he looked like a royal guard, Zeil stood at attention and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Shining armor glared at the disguised guard. "What are you doing out here?" "I told you to check the west wing." Thinking quickly, Zeil replied, "Yes, Your Majesty." "I was on my way there, but I spotted this, so I decided to investigate." He pointed at the fabric rope hanging overhead. Shining armor looked up. "Really?" "And," Zeil continued, "I spotted a few broken branches in this tree here, but no changeling, sir." Shining armor checked the tree, confirmed the branches, and asked, "And your partner?" Zeil answered, "I told him to continue to the west wing while I investigated. Since there is nothing here, I'll proceed that way, unless you have further orders for me, Your Majesty?" Shining armor gave Zeil a skeptical look. "No, I don't. Proceed to the west wing, and if you see anything suspicious, don't hesitate to act. Am I clear?" Zeil stood at attention. "Yes, Your Majesty." He turned away and trotted toward the castle's west wing. Before he was out of sight, Shining armor called, "Oh. And Starbolt?" Zeil stopped. "Yes, Your Majesty?" Shining armor reached into a pocket and pulled out the Everstone. "When we arrived here, I think I saw you. Drop this." "Is it yours?" Shining armor tossed the Everstone through the air and Zeil caught it out of reflex. He looked over the stone. "No. I don't think I dropped this. You think any of the others co?" Before he could finish his lie, the stone began glowing very brightly. Zeil's hoof slowly turned black as his entire body began changing back into his changeling form. Shocked by his unexpected transformation, Zeil dropped the Everstone, took a few steps back, and looked at himself. But how? Wah! Shining Armor smiled in gloating triumph, pointed his spear at him, and said, "Your name wasn't Starbolt." "That is the name of a criminal we are hunting? So you gave yourself away. You should have known that no changeling can fool me." Zeil sneered. "Well, you shouldn't blame me for trying. So what are you going to do now? Arrest me?" Shining Armor shook his head. "No. I got you all to myself." With that, he charged and swung the blade of his spear in an attempt to kill him. Luckily, Zeil was too fast. He dodged the attack and backed away. "Before you do, you need to know I'm not your enemy." Shining Armor replied, "Yeah. Right, like I'll believe you." He lunged again, but the quick changeling dodged the second attack as well. "No. I'm serious. I even helped your sister when she..." "Don't talk about my sister." With rage building, Shining Armor swung his spear repeatedly, but the quick changeling managed to dodge every attack with ease, even more easily than he himself expected. Finally, Shining Armor's rage got the better of him. He swung the spear vertically, missed his mark, and embedded the blade into the soil. Zeil placed his hoof against it and held it down. "Prince Armor, listen to me. You're not okay. Queen Chrysalis still has a slight hold on your emotions. She can't control them, but neither can you. If you stop, I can help you." "Shut up." With all his strength, Shining Armor pulled the blade from under Zeil's hoof, quickly raised it, and lunged forward, trying to dig it into his chest. Zeil sidestepped and avoided the attack, then placed 3 of his hooves on the shaft, pushed the blade down into the soil, and tried to reason again. "Please, Armor. I'm only trying to." Enough. Shining Armor channeled his strength into his hooves, gripped the spear, and flung the determined changeling over his head. Zeil was tossed through the air and landed almost 10 feet from where he had been thrown. Zeil picked himself up and looked at Shining Armor, whose eyes now glowed green. The angry prince shouted, "Your kind are a parasite. You bear no value to the world around you while hurting those that do. Your queen and the rest of your kind deserve to rot in Tartarus for all I care. And that's where I intend to send you. Every single one of you." With a rage-filled throw, Shining Armor tossed the spear at Zeil, hoping to kill him. When Zeil saw the spear coming, something unexpected happened. The spear seemed to slow in his sight. Zeil stepped aside, caught the airborne projectile, spun it around, and embedded the blade in the ground in front of him. He was stunned. He didn't know exactly how he had done it, but slowly realized that Zekra's teachings of patience, balance, and focus had enabled this improbable action. Looking up at shining armor, Zeil felt as if he were facing a raging bull. Even the prince's pupils were clouded by the green glow of the curse. Zeil pointed the spear at him. "All right. If you want to fight, then let's fight." Shining armor charged, drew his swords, and swung mercilessly. One after another he attacked, and Zeil used the spear to block each strike. Sparks flew from the impacts as metal met metal. The sound of blades echoed through the area. Shining armor yelled through his strikes, "You think because you can take the form of a simple creature you can live among us? You're fooling yourself. Creatures like you can't live like us. Creatures like you who have no conscience, no soul, no heart, and no decency. Creatures that can't even feel love." At that moment the words hit a soft spot. Zeil blocked the last attack, parried, and swung back, hitting shining armor in the side of the face with the staff of the spear. Stunned but not down, shining armor stumbled back and put a hoof to his head. Zeil glared and reached into his saddlebag. "Can't feel love. What do you know, unicorn? You think that a creature like us has much of a choice? You shun us every time we trot by. You treat us like monsters and chase us away anytime we try to speak. You think we have a choice in this matter? You're dead wrong. We can feel love just like you. But you know what? Right now, at this exact moment, you're the one acting like a changeling." Zeil pulled out a glass vial as shining armor's rage built. "Don't ever compare me to a freak like you." Shining armor charged again, and Zeil quickly tossed the vial. The blade shattered the vial and sent powdery contents into his face as he continued his charge without concern. Zeil blocked the enraged unicorn's strike with the spear. Shining armor cried, "I am not like you." Zeil smiled. "You're right. I'm better." Shining armor tried to charge a third time, but suddenly his hooves failed to move. Confused, the angry prince tried to move his body, but his hooves were frozen in place. He looked down. "What? What did you do to me? Why can't I move?" He jerked left and right, but his hooves remained immobile as they started turning gray. The color spread up his body and began to paralyze him. With a sneer, shining armor tried to curse, but the gray color engulfed his head and silenced him. Zeil approached. "It's apparent that your little rock neutralizes internal magic, but it does nothing to external magic. That simple mix I learned will prevent you from doing anything else. Luckily, it's non-lethal. But then again, I'm not." Shining armor hissed as the gray spread. Zeil lowered his voice and approached the prince. "There's no need for that kind of language. It will all be over soon anyway. Now I'll show you who's incapable of love." He lifted the spear, ready to drop it on the frozen unicorn. but as he looked into Shining Armor's eyes, Zeil sighed and lowered the blade. You know, killing you would be so easy right now. It would make me feel better too. But I'm not who I was a few weeks ago. I changed for the better. And you're just not worth it. Zeil took off his saddlebag, set it on the ground, and looked through it. He pulled out a small container, opened it, and said, "You know, if all goes well, you and I may even call each other friends someday. But I doubt it." He dipped his hoof into the pasty substance and smeared it onto Shining Armor's forehead. Then he wiped the remaining paste on the ground. There. You don't know it yet, but you're cured of the curse. By the time the freezing powder wears off, you will be in a much better state of mind. Even if I like you better frozen. A few royal guards emerged from the castle and called, "This way." I think I heard swords clashing. Prince Armor, are you out here? With no way to disguise himself, Zeil took the spear and fled the scene, leaving his saddlebag behind. Later, after crossing the bridge, Zeil chose a concealed spot, sat down, and tried to change back into his zebra form, but no part of his body changed. He muttered, "That stone. It completely removed my ability to transform. Why? I'd better keep moving. I must tell Zekara the truth. Even if I look like this, she deserves to know." With that, Zeil continued into the forest carrying the spear and made his way toward Zekara's hut. Not far from her hut, Zekara, Twilight, and a royal guard messenger trotted through the forest. Twilight asked, and he said he was going to the palace of the royal pony sisters? The messenger replied, "Yes. The princess instructed me to deliver this message to you personally to prevent unnecessary risk." Zekara spoke, "A cursed brother versus a creature of deceit. With two darknesses clashed, who knows who will taste defeat." Twilight asked Zekara, "You're sure you don't know where Zein lives? It's never even come up in conversation?" Zekara shook her head, "Not once did he say where he leaves for the day. I never did ask, for to know wasn't a must. Since in my heart like his, we always had trust." Twilight smiled, "That's sweet and all, but we could use his help in this too. I only hope we cross paths before this is through." Wait. I just rhymed. Zekara chuckled as the three entered the clearing where all the golden jokes grew. As they entered, Twilight looked around in awe. "So this is where you got the golden poison joke you have?" "They're everywhere." Zekara replied, "This is where Zein and the magic he spoke of came to create the golden Joe." Before Zekara could finish, Zeil, still in his changeling form, emerged from the forest on the other side of the clearing, and paused when he saw the three. Zekara? Too far for the three to hear. Him, Zekara, Twilight, and the messenger braced themselves for a fight as the guard drew his sword and yelled, "You there, halt!" Annoyed with Shining Armor's actions, Zeil didn't reply and started trotting slowly toward them. The guard took a few steps closer and shouted again, "Didn't you hear me?" I said, "Yield." Zeil yelled back as he trotted. "No. I will not yield to any pony." The royal guard, now annoyed, replied, "Then on your guard." He charged forward with his sword. Zeil turned his spear around and stuck the blade into the ground. The shaft blocked the incoming slash. Before the guard could react, Zeil used the buried blade as an anchor, swung around the staff, and kicked the guard in the side of his face. The guard fell to the ground unconscious. Seeing what happened, Twilight and Zekara readied themselves for a fight. "Stay back. Don't come any closer," Twilight called. Zeil looked at their angry faces. "I'm not here to hurt you." Twilight gestured toward the unconscious messenger. "Really? What about him?" Zeil looked at the messenger. "He is an exception. He tried to attack me, so I merely defended myself. Just like I did with shining armor." "What? What did you do with him? What did you do to my brother?" Twilight demanded. Knowing Twilight was worried, Zeil tried to calm her. "Your brother is fine. I promise I didn't hurt." Twilight sparkled. A number of royal guards rushed from the forest and stepped between the changeling and the Mares as one spoke. "Twilight, thanks Celestia you're unharmed. We found Prince armor a few minutes ago. I don't know what he did, but the prince is frozen." Twilight stared in shock. What? Is he all right?" The guard shook his head. "I'm sorry. But we don't know." In shock, Twilight looked down as Zeil tried to speak. "I did what I had to do to prevent him fro." Twilight glared and interrupted. "Guards, surround and arrest the changeling." The guards quickly surrounded Zeil. He sighed. "Really? I've got to face you guys too." He held his spear at the ready and waited as the guards attacked. The first guard charged in. Zeil easily blocked, parried, and pushed the guard aside just in time to block the next attack. One by one, each royal guard tried to land a stunning blow, but the well-trained changeling proved too much for them. Zeil and the royal guards continued their endless cycle of attack, block, parry, and push away. Twilight whispered to Zekara, "Zekara, I'm going to need your help to send this changeling back to his nation." Zekara nodded. "I will do what I must, though this isn't tranquil. This will be a tough task, for this creature has skill." Twilight asked, "What? Why do you say that?" Zekara watched Zeil fight and replied, "This creature's strength so familiar yet poised. His movement, his balance like silence amongst noise. I don't understand why it seems familiar. So peaceful yet strong. Like a fast-moving stream. But we must stop him still. For your brother we will redeem." As the two Mares formulated a plan, Zeil continued fighting and was slowly pushed back. Finally, as he started feeling weak, Twilight stepped forward and called, "Guards, wait! Stop! Attacking him!" The royal guards stopped and backed away from the now winded changeling. Zeil planted the spear and used it to brace himself as he caught his breath. Twilight trotted toward him. "You said you're not our enemy, right? Well, do you have any proof? Anything you can show us that proves you're not planning anything against Equestria?" Breathing heavily, Zeil tried to answer. He attempted to change into his zebra form, but the Everstone's magic was still in effect and he was too weak to focus. Twilight pressed, "No proof? Nothing to say in your defense?" Zeil looked at the hostile expression on Zekura's face, then back at Twilight. I can't say." Twilight pushed, "You can't. Or you won't?" Zeil didn't reply, instead, he gave Twilight an annoyed look and she continued, "I see. Then I have no choice. Guards, step away and be ready." The guards stepped away and watched. Twilight took an offensive stance. Zeil shook his head, "No. I'm not going to fight you, Twilight." Without catching that he knew her name, Twilight replied, "You have no choice. Zekura, now." Zekura pulled a small glass vial from her saddlebag and tossed it at the changeling. Zeil expected it to be the same powder he used on shining armor, so rather than letting it hit him, he used his spear to hook and fling the glass projectile over him. It hit the side of a tree and shattered, letting the liquid contents run down the tree stump. Twilight then shot a magical beam at Zeil, who quickly turned and deflected it with the spear. Zeil repeated, "Like I said before, I'm not going to fight." Why? He was cut off when he heard a familiar sizzling sound behind him. He turned and saw the potion steaming where it had soaked the tree. No. The vacuum potion. The changeling flipped the spear upside down and buried the blade into the ground to anchor himself. Twilight called, "Zekura. Guards, quickly come close to me." The guards surrounded Twilight as Zekura looked at Zeil in shock. He knows. But how? Is this his first time here in the Eat? Zekura reacting to Twilight's warning, Zekura rushed to her friend's side as the purple mare created a magical bubble that enclosed Zekura and the gathering guards. The sizzling liquid evaporated, and a powerful wind formed, pulling anything toward the splashed area. Even tree limbs snapped as they were yanked toward the trunk. The wind began pulling at Zeil's body, but he held the spear with all his might. Twilight used a spell, and a magic portal appeared between the vacuum source and the anchored changeling. When Zeil saw the portal appear, he assumed it led somewhere terrible. He gripped the spear tightly and watched as grass, golden jokes, and everything else were pulled into the portal. A sword flew by, nicked his shoulder, and vanished into the portal. Zeil looked and spotted the unconscious messenger sliding across the ground toward the portal. Twilight cried, "No!" as the messenger's body flew by. Zeil reached out, grabbed him, and pulled him close, placing the guard in front of the spear, away from the portal. Twilight, Zekura, and the other guards watched in shock as a changeling, the greatest enemy of ponykind, saved a pony soldier. After placing the guard where he couldn't be pulled, Zeil sighed and continued holding on. I must really be crazy to save Y. Before he could finish, he saw the spear leaning and thought both their weight might pull it from the ground. The winds grew stronger, and it took all his strength to keep his hind hooves on the ground. The words that started his day echoed in his mind. Show them what I am, or who I am. He looked at Zekura from the distance and thought of everything he'd done since arriving in the Everfree, the flirting when she treated his wounds, the sights she showed him, the magic he learned as her student, the wisdom from each meditation. Most of all, he thought of the golden joke, the stormy cave, and their first kiss. With those thoughts in his decision made, Zeil smiled peacefully at the pony party watching him. The ponies were surprised, but what came next stunned them. With his peaceful smile, Zeil spoke, Zekura. Goodbye. Though his voice was too low for the barrier to hear, Zekura somehow knew. Zeil released the spear, was pulled through the air, flew into the magical portal, and vanished from every pony's sight. The portal closed and the wind died down until everything seemed calm again. Twilight stopped the protective spell and the group spread out to check the area. The guards quickly surrounded the unconscious messenger and checked him. One spoke, Twilight Sparkle, this guard is fine. He's still out cold but unharmed. Twilight, slightly ignoring the guard, looked at Zekura. He gave himself for that soldier. But why? Zekura shook her head and looked at Twilight with concern. I know not his reason, nor why he. Before she could finish, every pony fell silent as the golden joke closest to where the portal had been began changing color from gold to lime green, then to dark blue. After the first few golden jokes changed back to their poison joke color, the rest followed in a wave motion until the entire field turned blue. Everyone, including Zekura, was speechless. They didn't know why the field had changed color, but it was easy to see it had something to do with the changeling's departure. Zekura reached behind her ear and brought down the golden joke she had been wearing to see if it would change. It did not. Twilight asked, Zekura? What's wrong? Are you okay? Tears slowly rolled down Zekura's face. She wiped it away and replied, I'm fine, my friend. I know not why I feel uneasy. Like this shouldn't be real. Twilight admitted, I'll admit I'm unsure whether sending that changeling away was the right thing to do. But it's already done. We can't change that now. Zekura couldn't tell whether her feelings were because of the changeling's departure, but she felt a deep sadness she couldn't explain. I'm sorry, my friend. I don't know why. This sudden tear fell from my eye. I guess it's the jokes, the blue that surround. With the return of their color, their mischief abounds. Twilight could tell Zechariah wasn't being entirely honest, but with no speculation she continued, I guess. So, wait. Shining armor. She turned to one of the guards. Hey! Can you take me to where Prince Armor is? The guard replied, of course. This way. The guards left and Twilight looked at Zechariah. Since this mess with the changeling is settled, I think I'll be fine from here. I'm going to check on Shining Armor. If I need you, I'll come find you, alright? Zechariah asked, You have no worry of your frozen bro? I can assist if you need me. Twilight shook her head. Before I would gladly have you come with me. But that changeling. Seeing him sacrifice himself for a guard that had no benefit to him, it makes me think what he said about not hurting Shining Armor is true. I'll check him. First, if his condition is the same, I'll return for your help. I don't want to bother you further, especially since I dragged you away from time that could be spent with Zeil. Zechariah nodded, then I'll bid adieu to you. Twilight and the royal guards trotted down the trail toward the castle of the royal pony sisters while Zechariah broke off and went the other way. Right before she left the refurbished poison joke patch, she paused, looked at the spear leaning in the ground, and mumbled. If he truly said goodbye, then what would provoke him? Or better yet, why? With that thought, Zechariah turned and left the area. The only thing left in the field of poison jokes was the leaning metal spear sticking out of the ground. Later that evening, right before sunset, Zechariah arrived at the place where they had agreed to meet. She sat on the cliff's edge and stared into the distance, waiting. She waited as the sun set, the moon rose, and the fireflies awoke and started their dance. Although the fireflies were the reason she loved this place, Zechariah paid them no mind as she continued to wait. As the night progressed, she looked toward the tree line behind her in hopes of seeing the stallion she loved approach. Each time she did, no zebra was there and she sighed in disappointment before turning back. As time passed, the fireflies returned to their tree and rested. Soon the stars began to fade, the moon set, and the sun rose. Tears built in Zechariah's eyes as she watched the rising sun with an unhappy sigh. Finally, with the rising sun, came the sound of hoofsteps behind her. Zechariah turned excitedly, only to find Twilight instead of Zeil. Disappointed, she turned back to the cliff. Twilight said, The guards said they saw you here. Actually, they said it was last night. They saw you. Were you here all night? Zechariah nodded without answering. Twilight pressed, Were you planning to meet some pony here? Or better yet, some zebra? Zechariah continued nodding silently. Twilight sighed and spoke, Zechariah, there's something you need to see. It's about what we found at the castle of the Pony Sisters. We found a saddlebag we think belonged to the changeling. I've seen that same bag before. I think it would be better if you came and saw it for yourself, having already pieced together the puzzle. Zechariah sighed. Very well, I'll go. Since I think it's so. The only way I'll accept it is if I truly know. She reached behind her ear, took the golden joke down, and looked into its gold-colored leaves. For a moment she thought of tossing the plant off the cliff, but she remembered something Zeil had said about why the plant would never wilt near him. She smiled and mumbled, "So it's true. I do love you. So you must truly love me too." With tears falling onto the golden leaves, Zechariah dug a small hole and planted the stem of the golden joke in the ground. With a content smile, she looked into the distance and whispered, maybe someday he could find the Everfree. And when he does, our love will truly be. She wiped her tears and she and Twilight left the cliff's edge to investigate where the mysterious changeling had slept. Epilogue. I am home. All was silent as Zechariah and her young Alicorn student balanced over the stream on staves. The young filly's expression became troubled as Zechariah sensed her agitation. To master your fears, you must first remove all fuss. That is how one attains focus, she advised. The little Alicorn tried to focus and return to a deep meditative state. Then, as they continued, Zechariah sensed a presence in the forest and said, with deep connection to the world around, you can seek all, even what's not found. Such as the guard who is roaming around, completely breaking her concentration. The filly opened her eyes. Guard? Before she could say more, the young Alicorn fell from atop the staff and into the stream below. With no trouble, Zechariah opened her eyes, lowered herself from the top of her staff, stepped onto the ground, and said, all distractions must be deterred, even if just a simple word. As the filly picked herself up from the water, she hung her head in shame. Sorry, teacher. I tried, I really did. But I'm just no good at this magic stuff. Zechariah patted the young princess on the back. Now, dear Umbra, your lessons are still fresh. Once you master my teaching, you will be a great princess. The young filly smiled as a group of royal guards stepped out of the tree line. Ms. Zechariah. Princess. Umbra's lessons are over for the day. I am here to escort her back to Canterlot. Zechariah smiled. Her lesson is done, but much more she will learn. So tomorrow we'll continue, so long as you return. Princess Umbra replied. Okay, then I'll see you tomorrow morning for the next lesson. Don't worry, teacher. I'll become strong just like Daddy. With that, Princess Umbra turned to the guards and left the area. Once the princess and her guards were out of sight, Zechariah secured both staves that had been used for balance and leaned them against a tree before trotting into the forest. Not long into her travels, she reached a small clearing where poison jokes grew. In the Center stood a leaning, rusty spear that hadn't moved in almost a decade. As she trotted past, Zekora smiled slightly at the spear and continued on. Further along the trail she noticed a random golden joke glowing on the side of the path. A few steps later, she passed a second golden joke on the opposite side. Soon nearly every step revealed another golden joke growing along both sides of the trail. Though the sight was striking, Zekora paid it no mind and continued. Finally, near the end of her trail, she stopped on the edge of a cliff and looked down at the same glowing golden joke she had once planted so many years ago. She cradled its golden leaves and smiled at what the plant had come to represent. Zekora felt memories flood her. Thoughts, the happiness, the joy, and the sorrow that followed. Even now, after 9 years, 11 months, and 16 days, the pain felt fresh. As she gazed at the golden joke's leaves, a familiar voice came from behind. Zekora? She paused and slowly turned toward the sound. There, at the tree line almost 20 feet away, stood Zeil. In his full zebra form, wearing a brown cloak with rings and accessories that could only be described as zebrakin. Zekora stared in shock and trotted toward him. See, could it be? Is it he? As Zekora trotted closer, Zeil put his hoof out to stop her. Zekora, wait. Before you come closer, I have to tell you something. No, better yet, I'll show you. With that he sighed and changed. His entire body, minus the cloak and accessories, shifted form and revealed his changeling shape. Zekora didn't recoil. Instead, she gave him an emotionless stare as he confessed. Zekora, I'm a changeling. I'm the same changeling you and Twilight defeated almost 10 years ago. My real name is Zeil. I've been deceiving you the entire time. Let me explain. Yes, I was one of the changelings involved in the attack on Canterlot. And yes, I lied, so you would save my life. But I couldn't tell you the truth in the end. I lied about who I was, but I really did come from a kingdom my queen destroyed. And did I really fall in love with you? Absolutely. Zekora, when I fell for you, I wanted nothing more than to be with you. I wanted to share your joy in the good, comfort you in the bad. I wanted to make every day with you the happiest I could. I loved you so much. The thought of losing you terrified me more than the thought of being punished for betraying my queen. Zekora, I love you. I spent the last 10 years traveling from nation to nation, Zebrica, the Highlands, even France, just so I could be back with you. But if you're upset with me or never want to see me again, I completely understand. Just know that through all the lies there is one absolute truth: I love you. Zekora stared at the changeling before her with almost no emotion. Though surprised by everything he said, she showed it only subtly. She turned to look at the golden joke on the cliff's edge behind her, then back to Zeil with a look that mixed seriousness and anger. She began trotting toward him, slow at first, then faster and faster, until she was moving at more than a jog. Zeil braced himself, expecting a strike. But when Zekara reached him, she didn't hit him. Instead, she threw her hooves around him and kissed him harder than she ever had before. Zeil stood stunned until she finished the kiss and, with tears running down her face, said, "I waited so long for you to return. Even after the origin I learned, I do not care the shape you take, the stripes you bear, or the lies you made. It was not your tail, your mane, or the color of your eyes, but the heart, the personality, hidden under the disguise. I loved you for you, and no matter how long you roamed, I'm happy you're here. I'm happy you're home." Tears fell as Zekara hugged him tightly. Zeil, moved beyond words, hugged her back. "It's okay, Zekara. I'm here. And whatever happens from here, I won't ever leave you again. And that is no lie."